Hello everybody, we're playing Heroes 3 today. Heroes 3 is one of my all-time favorite games. It's aged really well. Today's video is just going to be about the difficulty of the game. I notice a lot of people posting videos with impossible difficulty, but that's pretty misleading because it's the other game options that make a huge contribution to how hard the game actually is. So here we're starting a game of 1 versus 7 on impossible difficulty, with the other settings set to fairly easy modes. We're going to run through the game talking about how hard it actually is and discussing each game option. The first big option is, of course, your starting hero. We all have our favorites, and I would always recommend that you play heroes that you enjoy playing. However, there is a huge disparity of power between them. Heroes that start the game with strong skills like offense or logistics, or that have really good special abilities or starting spells like Chain Lightning or Meteor Shower, are really just superior to heroes that don't start with any of those things. Here I'm picking Galthran. He has strong skills, a strong speciality. His starting units match his speciality. He's just a really powerful hero. Next up is your starting army. Some heroes start with creatures that are much more powerful than others. Galthran starts with big stacks of skeletons that synergize with his speciality. Some other heroes can start with multiple third level unit stacks, which is particularly strong when they also synergize with their specialities or skills like archery. Ivor is an example, as he can start the game with multiple stacks of elvish archers combined with his speciality and archery skill, putting him miles ahead of the average hero at the start. You have the ability to restart the scenario until you have the desired number of unit stacks. I started the map with 2 unit stacks but re-rolled in order to get the 3rd stack. It's just another way of watering down impossible. This feature actually gets somewhat fixed in Horn of the Abyss because you always start with 3 stacks. Without getting too sidetracked, Horn of the Abyss is the version of the game I always play, but for the purposes of this video, I wanted to play this version. If you haven't played Horn of the Abyss, go and try it. Now let's talk about map size and type. This is a randomly generated map, and its size small. One might think that small maps are tougher because you have multiple opponents attacking you very early on. But in reality, a small map like this just makes the game a lot easier. All I did here was march over to the enemy town with my superior hero and superior army and wipe them off the map before they even got a turn. That is really unfair. It's almost like starting the game with 2 towns instead of 1, since your first opponent isn't even able to react to what you're doing. So we made it a 1v6 and we doubled our gold generation, and opponents haven't even got a turn yet. Medium maps are a lot tougher because you can't do this. As for really big maps, I would rate those as pretty easy as well because there's just not enough early game pressure. You get a long time before you get attacked. I love randomly generated maps, and that's usually what I play. As far as scenario maps go, the difficulty will obviously range map to map, but on the whole, I would say they're definitely easier than randoms, and that's just because of the simple fact that they are 100% scripted and you have the ability to replay them. So it doesn't take long before you know exactly where everything is and the optimal way to move perfectly through the map. So fighting enemy players is one thing, but fighting the monsters on the map that are guarding stuff is another big part of the game. We have our monster strength set to normal, and honestly, even that is just too easy. Units like gnolls or gremlins don't do much and end up just being free experience points. Compare that to strong monster strength, where you get higher level units or especially ranged units where you have guaranteed attrition against your army. The difference is just massive. Like, you cannot just walk around and take everything and do whatever you want with strong monster strength. It's a very different game. If you're playing something like a medium map and you are trapped because ranged units are guarding everything, you could be in a world of hurt. As far as number of opponents goes, there is some debate about that. The argument for fewer opponents being harder is that by the time you reach them, they will be individually more powerful than if there were many opponents. You can try it out and decide for yourself, but in my experience, I would say more opponents is generally tougher. That's because you have a better chance of losing a game near the start versus near the end. And having a steady stream of opponents harassing you early on makes for a much tougher beginning. Some of the more minor options are things like water or roads or your starting bonus. I do enjoy playing maps with some water sometimes, and I don't really think it affects the difficulty that much. I don't change the road settings very often. I feel like they are a fundamental part of the game and the fantasy. And the thought of not using any roads at all just doesn't even feel like Heroes 3 anymore. The starting bonus is another minor option because the amount is pretty small, but starting with the extra gold is clearly a lot better than starting with the resources or the artifact with impossible difficulty. The gold is a great crutch to help you hire another hero in the first few turns, so choosing resources or the artifact will definitely make the game harder. Here in the game, I'm still steamrolling my way around, killing stuff, gaining experience points, lots of back and forth action, taking and losing towns, growing my hero and growing my gold and resources until I can put down some roots, build up some towns, and then finish my enemies off with relatively huge creature stacks. So I beat this map with Galthran on the very first try. I am not a min-maxer, and I did make a few mistakes, like losing some units where I didn't need to. So I don't think I'm playing bad, but I'm definitely not playing an A game. So even with that, at no point from beginning to end do I ever feel like I can lose this map. Like, this just isn't hard at all. So now we're just gonna very quickly play a very similar map, but with a very weak hero, a weak one-stack army, and strong monsters. You can see right away that I can't kill anything. I just don't have the power, and I don't have gold to buy anything. So I'm trapped, and I can't really get much done before the opponents roll in and cut off my head. My chances of winning from the last game settings to these goes from very high to practically zero. So just saying that the difficulty is set to impossible is pretty meaningless. It's always the combination of the game settings that dictates exactly how hard the game really is. There is a multiplayer option for Heroes 3, but I don't play it. I only play single player. That's because I find that really long, especially turn-based games, just make for a really poor multiplayer experience. If you do try multiplayer though, the difficulty is of course always equal to your opponent's skill with a good dash of luck thrown in the mix. So that wraps things up. I hope you enjoy your next adventure in Heroes 3, no matter how you like to play the game, and thanks for watching.